Hello guys, welcome to lesson number 46 in our series Drawing Techniques for Beginners. We're going to be starting our Statue of Liberty portrait, I guess you want to call it that, today. So I've planned out my grids. I've used 3cm by 3cm squares and I've copied that over to my A4 size piece of paper. If you're going to be doing the grid method, I really would advise using one of these 18-inch rulers. It just makes it so much easier. You're getting one straight line rather than having to shift your ruler up and making slight errors. I really enjoyed the last project, which was the homestead, and thank you so much for all of the lovely comments, and it's been great seeing some of your work over on the group, particularly with the homestead. If you've not joined our group yet, go and find the Facebook group Tutorial Tuesdays Beginners to Pro and give that a request and I'll accept you into the group. You can find all the reference images for all of the projects we've done. Like I say, we're on lesson number 46 right now. And I just found this lovely reference image on Pixabay. It's obviously the Statue of Liberty, but it's a perspective that I haven't seen before, and I think it's going to give us a few opportunities to really get down to the nitty-gritty. So without further ado, I'm going to be using my HB pencil for this, and I've probably gridded out my paper slightly darker than I would advise you to do. I would use the 2H or a 4H for the grids if I was going to be doing this as a commission, just simply because it's very difficult to get rid of the lines and to have the paper so that we've not damaged the tooth. So I'm going to use the HB pencil and let's get cracking. So I've labelled my grids A to J and 1 to 6 across the top, just so it gives me a better idea of roughly where we are. I'm going to start with this point here to begin with. So we're coming into D4. So there's D and there's 4. And I'm just going to make a rough mark. I'm eyeballing this to start with. And then I'm going to have a look where this line comes to here. We're going to make a triangle shape, so we're in F4 as well, and we're sort of just off-centered there. Now I can also see that now we've created this sort of triangle. I'm just going to freehand this line in. Okay, so I can see that we've got this slightly lighter edge and we've got this three-dimensional look to it. So we're just going to, as best as we can, follow a similar line, and we are almost to the edge of this number 4 box. So let's now have a look at this semicircular shape. Again, it's in F4 and we're about 1/2 centimetre off the bottom, and then we're coming up to beyond halfway, and I'm just going to trace that round. Now by the look of that, I just need to make a slight adjustment. I'm going to use my Mono Zero eraser for this. I feel as though I just came slightly too low down there. But like I've said in all of the other videos, don't worry too much about getting the initial sketch down perfectly or the first few lines. As we build the picture up and we can start to then use other areas of the drawing as reference points, we can then make adjustments accordingly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and trace this line around here now. So let's have a look to see where this comes. This is in F5 and we're in this sort of position there, and then let's have a look at where this one comes into the next box. And now I've got those rough points in. Just using a sweeping action with my hand, and let's just see where we're going to come to. So it's just going to slightly cut this corner off, and it comes down roughly into, not quite into the center of G3. Yep, I'm roughly in the right location there. And again, I'm pressing on quite hard here so that you guys and girls can see this on the video. But press very lightly. Let's have a look for this point now. So we're in F, we're in F2, and it just protrudes into E2 slightly. So we're somewhere there. Let's find the point that it meets in G with the rest of this crown. So it's in G3, which is here. And then the top point is, it just rests on that section there. So again, we're freehanding this. If you want to use a ruler, then by all means go ahead. And what I might do after I've plotted this out and I've got rid of my grid lines, I might go over a few of these areas with a ruler, just to give it this sort of machined look. We talk about contrast. If you remember back to the last project that we did, the homestead, I was talking about contrast an awful lot. Now, to most people, contrast means the light and dark. And I guess if you looked at the dictionary version of contrast, that's what we would get. But I also like to have a contrast of textures and also lines as well. So this is something that's been man-made, it's been machined, or I'm not entirely sure how they would have done it, whether it's hand-carved or machined, but we've got some very, very straight lines in there. And we want to try and capture that, because if we were looking at something that was in nature, we're not going to necessarily have these very, very straight lines. So just to give the look of something that is manufactured, it's nice to have those. I'm just going to have a look for this point now. So we're going to look for D6. There's D, there's 6. And it's not quite. It's coming in at this type of angle there. And it's meeting this crown in F5. Roughly there. And I can see how much of this next grid square is being cut off. And then just following this up. I might use my ruler just for that. That's an awkward angle to get right. There we go. And then, like I say, we've got this three-dimensional look to it. So we've got this slight overhang, and then let's go in with the ruler again. That's a long line to get right there. I mean, ordinarily I would turn the paper and move it around, but just for the sake of viewing, and also just to show you, I've heard some people saying that using rulers is cheating over on some art groups, which is absolutely ridiculous. There is no cheating in art. However you can get this down onto your paper, then go for it. The magic is when we're adding the value. Okay, let's have a look for this hair now. So we have where both sides of this hair meet, we've got this area here. So we're sitting on G4, somewhere there. It's not quite in the center. So if we look at where this lines up with this is slightly to the left. So I need to make sure that if I come down, that I'm slightly to the left, which has now shown me that that line there is not quite in the right place. So I would like to just take my ruler and just move that line back slightly. And this is what I said to you a few minutes ago, that the initial lines and the initial marks that we get down on the paper aren't necessarily going to be absolutely correct, and that you're never going to get them absolutely correct to start with. But as we then start to add, we can then see that things line up differently. And we can make adjustments as we go along. So let's have a look where the end of this curve sits. So it's in G3 again. G3 here. And I always like to just number and label my grid. If I'm using anything that is over sort of maybe a 5 by 5 squared grid, it's very easy to get lost and placing things in slightly the wrong areas. So if we trace this round now and find where this lies, now I really would recommend turning the paper. Don't be getting your hand into awkward positions where you're finding it difficult to create a nice curve. If this is the first time that you visited the channel, thank you so much for clicking on that thumbnail. Like I say, we're on lesson number 46 now, and I never envisaged making this many videos when I started out. I just wanted to put together a series of lessons that would teach you some of the methods that I've learnt over the last few years, certainly some of the things that have worked for me, but also showing you some of the things that haven't worked for me. And I started a Facebook group to go along with it, and it's turned into such a nice place to be on the Facebook group that we've ended up at lesson number 46. I'm just looking now where this lies. So we're in H2, there we go. So I was looking here, but it's actually in this block. So it's almost a horizontal line there. And it doesn't quite come all the way out to the edge of this square, but I'm going to put it there, and then I can get that bit of the clothing in there as well. I'm going to use the straight edge in there. But yeah, so like I was saying, the group's turned into one that has been very friendly. People are really getting on board with some of the projects, and it's been fantastic seeing people's progress. And you know, we've had people that have gone from complete beginners and they're starting to draw portraits and they're starting to produce work that they're proud of, which is exactly what I wanted from the group. I'm going to find this point here now. Wherever you can find a sort of landmark or an area that crosses one of the lines, I like to get those in. So I'm in I, and I'm on the line between 3 and 4. So there's the line between 3 and 4, and there's I. We've almost got this crease, and that's going to give me a good indication as to how far down this face needs to come. So just looking at the general direction. Now, ordinarily, when we're drawing things like hair, fabrics and clothing, it doesn't really matter if we're not absolutely precise with the layout, as long as we're getting the general direction. But obviously in this case, we're drawing the Statue of Liberty, and it's made out of stone, and it's one of the most recognisable statues in the world. And these folds of clothing don't move, because obviously they're made out of stone. I'm not entirely sure what the stone is, whether it's sandstone or granite or a mixture of those stones. But yeah, we've got to get the placement right, even though we are looking at this in a slightly odd perspective. It's going to be very easily recognisable to people, and if we're slightly out, it's going to look odd to people, and they're not necessarily going to know why it looks odd. They're just going to know that it does. So looking for these folds, the general placement of things. And this grid method is very good for training your eye to ultimately become better at freehanding. The art of freehanding is being able to see where things actually sit. Obviously you've got to have the control over the pencil with your hand, which is vital, and we're obviously learning that, and we're improving that as we go. But learning to see how things line up and where they line up is vitally important. Okay, let's have a look at trying to get some of this extra hairline in now. So I'm going to look, let's have a look here, I3, which is here. So we're not quite halfway across, and it's slightly leaning towards the left of the square here. So we've got a slight angle there, which then comes into, I'm guessing, this cheekbone structure here. So this nose now is the next important element. I'm just having to concentrate a little bit now, so forgive me if I'm not talking. Some of you will probably be thankful that I'm not talking for a minute or two. I'm flicking my eye back from the reference image over to my drawing. Putting some dots down, just in some, I just located this area here and just try to find it on the reference there, because it's another one of those anchor points that I can then work from. If I know that I've roughly got this in the right area, then I can build off of that. So the angles are looking okay there. Now once I start to get other things in place, I might find that I'm slightly off in an area. So that's another reason why we use a very light pencil and we do not press on too hard, because we are going to be needing to make corrections. So this cheek here now is the underside of this eye. We've got some very dark shadows under there. That are going to be nice to play around with. I think what we're going to have to really try and achieve with this is some very smooth changes of value. You know, even in these lighter areas here, we've got a lot of value in there. And we've got some beautiful contrast as well. So it's going to be a challenge, but one that I'm sure we're up to. I'm going to look for the corners of this mouth now. So the first one is in H4, which is somewhere here. And we are almost centre from left to right, but possibly slightly over to the right. But we're slightly sitting high. We've got this bow shape in the lip. And then we've got this shadow underneath. It's actually a soft edge, what we've spoken about before. We've not got a hard edge under here. But we've got this shadowed area, which gives us the illusion of form and contour. Which again will be fun to play around with. So the rest of this nose is sitting somewhere under there. Now this reference image, again, I've printed it off of Pixabay, but what I will be doing when we start to draw is I will put this image up on my iPad or my laptop in front of me and zoom in and out, because the detail in here is not ideal from this printed out piece, but I can certainly see that there are some nostrils in there which are still sitting within this grid square. But it's very difficult to see exactly because it is so dark in there. So again, what we were talking about in the homestead is sometimes we just need to give the illusion or the impression that there's something there. Just gently push the viewer's imagination in the right direction. Let their brain interpret it and make the rest of it up. Okay. So we've got an eyebrow sort of sitting in here somewhere. And the more and more of these lines that we start to get in to our reference, from the reference onto our drawing, the easier it is then to plot the rest of the drawing out. And we start to see things that don't quite line up and areas that need to be slightly adjusted. Just getting the rough shape of these eyes. And again, the details aren't brilliant on the reference images I've printed it out. But I think we've got enough in there to give us a good indication. Okay. So looking at the time, we're sort of around about that 26, 27 minute time now. I think you've got a very good idea of where we're going with this. So I'm going to continue plotting this out. And at the start of the next lesson, what we're going to be doing is we're going to just start identifying some of these very dark areas. And we're going to start working in those dark areas around ththese creases with our 2H pencil, building up into the HB pencil and going on from there. But I think this is going to be an enjoyable project. I hope you get on with this. If you've got any issues or any questions, then fire them across to me over on the group. Don't forget to have a look at the Instagram page, which is @artisticn1k. Join the YouTube channel by subscribing and hitting the notifications button. And I'm really looking forward to this. I can't wait to see how some of you get on with it. Thank you so much for the support, the lovely comments. Every like, share, comment really does help push the channel out there and also the group. And I'll speak with you, most of you, I guess, over the course of the next week on the group. And thanks so much again for watching, and I'll speak to you soon. Hit subscribe, smack the notifications button. Follow me on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter.